One of my favorite things about my podcast is the way I get to interview inspiring people about their amazing stories. Today at Live on Purpose TV, how to interview someone for your podcast. Podcasting is something that I love to do. I've been doing it since 2007. My podcast, Live on Purpose Radio, has been really my professional hobby. I decided to do something right up front that has made all the difference for me. Now, there's different formats for different podcasts. For me, interviews have been the sweet spot. Having an interview format for my podcast has given me an opportunity to not only give my listeners a chance to hear a voice other than my own, but it's given me the amazing opportunity of interacting with phenomenal, amazing, brilliant people all over the world. In fact, I got to show you my bookshelf. This bookshelf is filled with books that have been written by the guests of my show. There is not a book on my shelf that wasn't written by a guest from my show. I had to clear out all the other books just to make room for these amazing guests. I think of this as my human treasury, if you like that idea. I can call these people, I can text these people, I can reach out to them for various things. They have become part of my human treasury, and I'm so grateful for that. So I thought I'd take a few minutes on this video today to give a few tips or things that I've learned about how to interview someone for a podcast. I think the first step there is to be clear about your purpose. My podcast is called Live on Purpose Radio. The purpose of the podcast is to illuminate principles that allow people to do just what the show suggests, to live on purpose, instead of letting life push them around. So I'm looking for guests on my show who understand that and who have a story or a life experience that has taught them very powerfully how to live on purpose. So as I get clear about my own purpose for the podcast, I can share that with guests or potential guests, and we can find out pretty quickly whether they're a good fit. So you want to make sure that that fit of purpose is in place right up front. Now, here's something that I've talked about many times before. It's not about you. It's about your audience. So keeping in mind the needs of your audience will help you to have conversations in the interview with your guest that will bring out the principles or the ideas that will be most valuable to your audience. Think about who your audience is as you're holding this interview. You might want to check in with who they are in the sense of what kind of presentation is going to be most valuable to them. One of the obvious examples that I'm thinking of has to do with humor. People are either thrilled and delighted or offended by humor. And it's because of the words that are chosen. It's because of the topics that are chosen. It's because of the style of delivery. And not every style is appropriate for every audience. I want every one of my podcasts to be something that my kids could listen to, that I'm going to feel good about having my parents tune into. That is important to consider when you're putting together this interview and in selecting your guests. And that brings up my next point. Know your guests. Know your guests. Many of the people on my show I've already met or had interactions with in some way. There are a lot of people now that reach out to me because of the popularity of the show. They'll reach out to me asking, can I be on your show? Would you highlight my book? Would you tell my story? And I'm happy to consider that. When I say know your guest, have ways of understanding where they're coming from, what their motivation is. Do a little bit of homework. Make sure you've read their book. If they've written a book and you're going to mention it on your show, I read every book of the authors who are on my show. It helps that I went through a speed reading course years ago and I can get through that content fairly quickly. But I want to have enough knowledge of where they're coming from and what their ideas are that I can be conversant with them, that I can have an intelligent conversation with them. That's important to me, and I think it's important to my listeners. As you get to know your guest, consider this, and I think this is one of the things that I get feedback about this. I have people tell me, "Oh, Dr. Paul, you're such a good interviewer. You're so good at this." Why? Because I make them feel so comfortable. When they're interviewing with me, it's simply a conversation. And I know enough about them and about their topic that I can lead that conversation to something that my audience will appreciate. And everybody's having fun. I feel like if we're not having fun, we're doing it wrong. So you want to have a comfortable, conversational approach with your interviewees. It puts them at ease. And then my goal, what I'm thinking in my mind during the interview, how do I elevate my guest to a position of, I don't know if I want to say celebrity. I guess I just did. I want to elevate them to a position of celebrity, at least in terms of this podcast and this episode, where they are the most important, most brilliant, most wonderful person on the earth. This helps them to feel good, but it also endorses them in the eyes of my listeners and my subscribers. So making them the hero, you know what? There's kind of an interesting paradox here. Because the more you shift your focus as a host or as an interviewer, the more you shift your focus to the person that you're interviewing and you make them the hero, the more heroic you become in the eyes and minds and ears of your audience. That's something that can make you a hero. Like I said at the beginning of this particular video, there's a lot of different formats that a podcast could take. I have chosen an interview format because of the richness that I think that adds, and the depth and the variety and the new voices that my audience get to hear, and the human treasury that it builds for me. There may be other ways that you want to run your podcast. If you want to do interviews, remember, it's not about you. It's about your audience, and it's about your guest. And as you elevate your guest to a hero status with your audience, both your guest and your audience will love you for that. And you're going to have some fantastic interviews. Interviewing people. It's a great way to create content for your podcast. If you know someone who you would like to feature at Live on Purpose Radio, click on the link below in the description to recommend them.